Alright, response video to a couple of videos. A couple by Nick on the economy, and this E. Godini guy, who's kind of a rude guy. So I won't post it as a response. But anyway, he makes these videos with these 30-second intros, 3-minute videos. Not a great idea. Anyway, they deliberately have static in them. I mean, mine are crappy, by no fault of my own, not intentionally anyway. But anyway, so he makes the contention that I was unfair to Obama too by playing his clip and responding to point by point. That's unfair. A real jerk. So anyway, his basic argument is that it's the people who borrowed the money to buy a house that are the problem, and not the nice bankers. They didn't do anything wrong. And so it's a stupid argument, I think. Yes, people have borrowed too much money, okay, but it's not buying homes where they bought too much stuff. It's all the other crap, the cars and the other crap, the credit card stuff. That's the real obscenity. But what happened with this whole mortgagee thing is the deal has always been the same deal. I mean, everybody's had the expectation for 60 years that real estate values just keep going up. Over time, that's what they've been doing. So that's sort of a legitimate expectation for somebody who doesn't really see what's happening over time or doesn't have the big picture thing. Yeah, that's a reasonable expectation. So they don't think they're going to buy a home and it's going to lose 3/4 of its value. But the bottom line is the contracts they sign basically are, yeah, you got to pay for this house, blah, blah, blah. But there's this thing that happens if you can't pay for it, we foreclose and take the house and any bit of equity you have in the house. And so that's the contract. That's the bet the bankers made. And so when the foreclosures happen, why are we bailing out the bankers? I mean, they made the bet. They decided to invest in this thing that could go on forever. They're the ones that's supposed to have the expertise. They're the ones supposed to understand the economy. So why are they getting an exemption from the bubble bursting? Because all of this bailout money, none of this bailout money is going to people sitting there on the brink of foreclosure, or who are going to lose their house and any equity they put into their house. They're not getting anything at all this fucking money. I mean, excuse my French. I mean Portuguese, whatever it is. There's trillions and trillions and trillions of dollars that are going to be thrown into these banks. We're bailing out the investors, the people who said, yeah, I'll buy some of that. I'll buy into that bet. Okay, and we're doing it even more obscene. The bigger obscenity was when they took this bill to the Senate and then put the extra, raised the federal insurance to $250,000. Because they basically just said, let's insure all the investor money. Screw the people who lose their houses. We're just going to make sure that the people who invested get all their money back. All right, so we're going to pay top dollar for a bottom dollar asset. And so Nick was talking about money, and how there's no, money doesn't just go around and blah, blah, blah. He was making some argument like with somebody about the real value of it. And it doesn't just change hands because there's all these other instruments that are worth money. And sort of money is always tied to something. Whether we have a gold standard or not, there sort of is a gold standard. Because money has its value relative to all these other things that money can buy. And that's where this whole thing got really perverted, is that now we're going to borrow money. We're not even just going to print it. We're going to print some of it. We're going to just borrow a big ton of it. I mean, they raised the debt limit for the stimulus bill to $13 trillion. So that's our new debt. All right, it was $10 trillion just a year ago, and now it's $13 trillion. So that's the reality of this thing. They're going to borrow this money, okay, to basically give people back and say your dollars are still worth dollars. That's what it comes down to. Even though the real estate values have crashed, even though one of these assets the dollars was tied to has completely deteriorated, we're going to give you the top dollar for what you invested. You invested $100,000, we're going to give you back $100,000 for their investment. So it's ludicrous to look at this any other way than the rich stealing. They're just thieving here. All right, what they basically did is they took something like a bank and they turned it into a casino. They decided that, no, I'm not going to put in money and then only get a little tiny bit of money back. I want a slot machine. I want something I put money in and it gives me more money back. All right, and then they put in poker tables and did all this other stuff. And it wasn't a bank anymore. It was a gambling house. All right, and they decided to just keep giving away money, in loans to people that had no prospect of paying them back even if real estate values stayed where they were. These loans were just preposterous, well beyond people's means, and they made that bet. And they should be the ones. They should be just like the guy who loses his house. They should be losing their money, and we've decided to bail them out. And it makes no sense whatsoever. If the banks all went bankrupt, there would be nothing. You would lose nothing. This is not a credit crisis. This is a debt crisis. There are plenty of people in the world who want to lend us money. Right now, they're buying 10-year bonds at 4% interest. They're desperate to make more money than that. That stinks. All right? So there's plenty of money willing to be lent. There's just nobody to borrow it, okay, because everybody's already in debt. They have no prospect. There's no one rational would invest in them because they already have such a debt burden they can't finance any more debt. And that's what it is. It's a debt crisis. So anyway, all that's happening here is all the gamblers are going to get paid off. They're basically going to leave the gambling house, even though they lost their money. They made fools of themselves, lost their money on silly bets. They're going to be able to leave the gambling house with all their money. And it's the people walking the streets who didn't have anything to do with any of it are all going to have to pay the bill. I mean, it's ludicrous what's happening here. It's just so grotesque. But what happened? But anyway, the dollar will eventually be inflated out of its value. But first, there's going to be deflation. So first, money becomes more valuable, and then it becomes less valuable. Because it's only until everybody just runs away from the dollar, when everybody realizes that there's other assets that'll have value, that'll last. Because the dollar's dead. Because now it's tied to so much debt that there's no way it can retain its value. So I don't know if there's anything else that I have to say here, but money is tied to a standard. Whether you think whether we have an official standard or not, there is a standard. It's other currencies and gold and everything out there that it buys. And when there's too many dollars, fake dollars, borrowed dollars, existing, then the money's going to lose its value. It just can't happen any other way, and that's all we're doing here. We gave $1 trillion to the bank. Now we're having $1 trillion in well, 700 or 800 billion in stimulus, more fake money, more borrowed money. It doesn't make any sense. It doesn't have any real value. It can't be exchanged. If this money is, if you attempt to exchange it for something real, it's only going to get you 1%, because it's the same money chasing the same money. It's IOUs on the same dollar bill. I don't know how to better explain it, but you can only have so many liens on one thing, and the real material things have more than one lien on them, more than one claim on them, and so it's whose claims are going to be valid is the real question. And what we've basically done as a society is said, well, first we're going to make sure the rich guys' claims are good, so we'll give them $250,000 in insurance, and we'll make sure every one of their claims are good. And that's just nonsense. Like I said, if the banks all failed, I didn't finish that point, if the banks all failed tomorrow, it would be no problem. All the debt paperwork, all the contracts, all that stuff would still exist. Nothing would change. The only thing that would change is the people who invested the money in the bad assets wouldn't get a free ride. Okay, they wouldn't be bailed out. But the legitimate investors who have insured assets in the bank would get their money back. They'd be paid off legitimately, not in this illegitimate way. And what's really illegitimate here is they're just getting, like I said, it would make more sense for the government just to do the right thing and give people back their deposit insurance money. And that's why they raised it in that bill. The only reason why they raised it is to protect the super wealthy. Who else has $250,000 in cash in the bank? Nobody. Okay, so anyway, they're protecting the people who basically borrowed money and played in the casino with borrowed money. It's not even real money they played in the casino with, and we're going to give them back the real value of that money they borrowed, which is just such a joke. So anyway, it gets convoluted, but I think you get the idea. We're bailing out the bettors, and we're screwing people who just made honest mistakes, and that's really disgusting.